The Candidates tournament starts in the middle of March to determine who will challenge Magnus Carlsen for the world title in November. I'm profiling all 8 players, and here we have Wang Hao from China. Well, he qualified for the Candidates by winning the FIDEchess.com Grand Swiss tournament in the Isle of Man in the autumn, much to I think everyone's surprise, including his own. He said he really didn't expect to do well in the tournament, and he said, well, I was very lucky to win. Typically modest from Wang Hao. That victory brought him back up into the top 20 in the world. And, well, at the moment, he's actually at number 12, having just come equal first in the Gibraltar tournament. So another success for him. So he really seems to be back where I think he belongs. Those of you with long memories will remember that back in 2013, he was playing in the FIDE Grand Prix series and was part of the elite. He was rated at 27.52 when he was just 23 years old, and he looked to be at that time the most promising Chinese player. But he had a real slump. In 2017 he was back down to number 75 in the world, and it seemed as though his chess career had really gone off the rails. And after his victory in the Isle of Man in the autumn, he said that he's been coaching some players and somehow not taking his chess that seriously. I find it so interesting. He's somehow a very phlegmatic character. And there was a fascinating interview with Wang Hao on ChessBase India. I would really recommend that, where he was asked about his compatriot Ding Liren. And actually, it was just as revealing about Wang Hao as it was for what he said about Ding Liren. So here's Wang Hao. He said, basically, I don't really consider him as my friend. Well, okay, I wouldn't expect that from top players. They're colleagues, but it's hard to be friends when you're sort of big rivals. But what's interesting about that, I think, is that Wang Hao was kind of so candid about it. But then he went on. Wang Hao said about Ding Liren, I think he's extremely ambitious. Even if we play card games, he really wants to win, not like to play for fun. For me, it's a different story. I wouldn't care about the results. And I think, that says a lot about his attitude to chess as well. Sometimes he seems to play kind of for enjoyment. He's a very original player. He doesn't mind taking risks. So he has a tremendous imagination, and he absolutely loves attacking as well. My question is, does he have that steely determination to actually win through? We'll see. I would love it if he did. He's such a nice guy, and one of life's originals. But let me show you the kind of creativity he has on the chessboard, and also his incredible ability to calculate. So this was played just recently in the Gibraltar Masters tournament, which he came equal first in. And Wang Hao has black against Nino Batsiashvili from Georgia. So she's rated, 24.56, so quite a bit below, but, still she's a very decent player. So Wang Hao playing the Dutch, not afraid to play something, quite challenging. And here e6, so this is quite a well-known position. And here Batsiashvili exchanges in order to get in e4. So very often in the Dutch, if you can break with e4, this is pretty good news. And a few hundred games have actually reached this position. Most people have played either Castle's kingside, or taken, or d5 is also quite a popular move. But here Wang Hao played a move, g6, which no one else has ever played. See, I find that very interesting, that he's prepared to go his own way. And now c3. And castles and bishop d3. So white has very easy development. Black has a big bishop, and that is really what Wang Hao is playing for in this position, hoping that this bishop somehow doesn't have an opponent, is going to come good at some stage in the game. But look at the Chinese player's queenside. Nothing developed as yet, so therefore b6. But if I were going to pick a side here, I would go with white any day of the week, because I think white's plan is very easy. You can just attack on the queen side, or excuse me, on the king side, and castle on the queen side if necessary. Well, it's vital for black to gain counterplay here, otherwise it's just going to be too easy for white to crack open the h-file and so on. So therefore c5. So we have a very tense position on the board, and white has several ways to play here. He could just give up this strong point and take on c5 and play h5, but Batsiashvili plays e5 and h5, also very dangerous. Wang Hao exchanges in the middle, ready to break with d6. If pawn takes pawn, then d6, and certainly there's some counterplay there. But knight takes d4 and knight c6, so Wang Hao starts to develop, very important. And Batsiashvili exchanges and plays f4. So that cements the pawn on e5. And yeah, we could be ready to castle queenside and carry on with the attack. So d6 from Wang Hao, absolutely vital. He gets counterplay and starts to open up the center. Otherwise, he'll just be dead on the king side. And already we're reaching a moment where it really is quite critical. You know, if one side gets it wrong here, they could just go down. So Batsiashvili exchanges or takes on g6, and now Wang Hao takes on e5 and just allows his king side to be destroyed. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. So why didn't he play simply pawn takes pawn? Well, bishop c4 is actually quite an unpleasant move. Threatening bishop e6, which with the open h-file is deadly. So what about bishop d5? Well, in that case we can just exchange, play the knight to f3, which holds the pawn on e5, and castle on the next turn. And that is really unpleasant for black. I mean, I think you can see that it's not just the open h-file, but actually through the middle of the board, through that diagonal, black is really weak. Very easy for white to play. Alternatively, after h takes g6, bishop c4, there's also d5, which at least has the merit of closing the position for the time being. The problem is here, black lacks any kind of counterplay. The d-pawn can't advance again because the pawn hangs on e6. White is ready to play the knight to f3, castle queenside if necessary. The knight goes to g5. I mean, this is just such an automatic attack. It's a horrible position for black to try to defend. So let's come back. So h takes g6 just played, and Wang Hao, sensing that he could be in real trouble, decided to give up the king side and take in the center. Now, Batsiashvili took on h7. She could also play bishop c4, also a good move. But anyway, this doesn't look too bad. breaking through, and mate threats start to appear as well. Queen f6, hoping to defend a little bit. Queen h5. Now I hope you've all spotted the threat, which is to play rook h8 followed by queen h7 checkmate. So already Wang Hao has to take evasive action and rook d8. So in that case, that gives the king an escape square on f8. And it's not a bad move to play anyway, attacking the bishop. And here is, again, another absolutely critical moment in the game. I mean, how would you play here? Batsiashvili goes for it. She goes all in, makes a really brave move and comes so close to winning. This is a very interesting move. Bishop c4 again. And that probably gives white enough to hold the game. Well, it's incredibly complicated. But instead of that, she played knight e4, which is almost a knockout blow. And I think now this shows Wang Hao's great skill. He's a great calculator. So here he's not actually attacking, well, not yet at any rate. He's having to defend, and he needs to calculate precisely in order to get through. First of all, what happens if this knight is taken? So let's try pawn takes knight. Well, then there's pawn takes pawn. This is really nasty. So if queen takes, then we're back to this little trick and checkmate on f7. Back here, and if queen f5, we can take, and in this case the g pawn is going to roll through, and g8. So what do we play? Well, the queen shouldn't move, so bishop takes knight, and now pawn takes pawn. Again, this is really tricky, and there's this same little trick. If queen takes pawn, then rook h8 actually forces checkmate and mate on f7. So after f takes e5, the queen is attacked and has to step back. This is very scary. Once again, bishop c4 is an interesting move. Black should win, but, well, you have to find some only moves there. But Batsiashvili played castle's queenside, absolutely all in. And after rook takes bishop, black is now 2 pieces up, rook h1. Now this looks absolutely terrifying. You might like to have a little think how you would play here if you were black. Of course, Wang Hao would have had to have foreseen this some time ago, which makes it even more difficult. White is threatening to checkmate with rook h8. So black has to find counterplay immediately, and in fact, this is absolutely deadly. Black, in the nick of time, manages to break through to the king. When that's taken, check. The king has to step onto the d file, which allows the rook to come in. And now we can chase the king across the board. And here, Batsiashvili actually resigned. There's no safe spot for the king to head to. So king here, check, for example. Take on e5, check here, and queen here, and mate in a couple of moves. Brilliant counter-attack from Wang Hao, brilliantly calculated. You might say he was a little bit lucky to get away with it. White did have several very interesting attacking possibilities. Nevertheless, I just really like that game because I think it shows his style, how bold he is, how he's not afraid to take risks. Now, of course, he can temper this natural aggression when he plays much stronger players. Nevertheless, given a chance, he loves to attack. So yeah, I would love it if Wang Hao actually had some success in the tournament. Let's see.